Imagine picking up the ultimate flawless guidebook meant to explain the universe to you, and the very first thing you read is an unreadable, unsolvable error code.
Right. It's just a complete system halt. You sit down with the manual for existence, you're ready for clear step-by-step instructions, and instead, the system just throws this raw, seemingly impenetrable glitch right in your face.
And you know the craziest part about this is millions of people, they just read past this specific code every single day.
Oh, absolutely. They skim right over it.
Yeah, completely unaware that they're bypassing the most advanced psychological security protocol ever designed.
It's a massive blind spot. I mean, for the modern reader, it's huge, because if you don't pause to understand the mechanism behind this specific error code, you might be locked out of the system's true meaning forever.
So you're reading the words, but you're denied access to the actual wisdom.
Exactly. You get the text, but you don't get the keys.
So that is the target of our deep dive today. We're looking at a deeply ancient text, the first verse of Surah Yasin from the Quran, but we are not looking at the whole chapter.
No, not at all. We're putting a microscope onto just the exact two letters that open it, Ya and Sin.
Right. And our objective here is to break down these two isolated letters using, honestly, every analytical tool we have. We're going to look at ancient Arabic linguistics, the Harvard case study method, quantum physics.
And systems engineering from ETH Zurich.
Yes. All of this to show you how to execute a massive foundational mental reset in your own life.
Because that's what it is, right? It's a reset button.
It really is. Now, I want to start by looking at how we're even supposed to read something like this. Because if I look at a standard English translation, it just says Yasin.
Yeah, which looks like a normal word.
Exactly. It looks like a name. But to really see the error code, we have to look at what's called the correct mana, right?
Right. That is the crucial first step. So correct mana translates roughly to the broken meaning.
The broken meaning. Okay.
Yeah, it's this foundational pedagogical technique. Normally, when translators move a text from Arabic to English, they smooth out all the rough edges.
Make it sound pretty for the Western ear.
Exactly. They build a bridge over the gaps. But Kamana, it takes a sledgehammer to that bridge. It forces you to break the text down word by word.
Sometimes particle by particle, right?
Literally particle by particle. You're isolating the raw, literal meaning without any of that grammatical dressing.
Wait, hold on. Let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around this. If I have an English sentence like, I am going to the store.
Okay, good example.
A standard translation just captures the intent, right? Like, I'm heading out. But Kamana would force me to look at I as a singular pronoun, am as a state of being, going as a continuous action.
That is a perfect parallel. You're looking at the bare mechanics of the language. And when we apply this broken meaning to classical Arabic, well, we encounter an incredibly mathematical structure.
Mathematical in what way?
Because almost every single word in the Arabic language is built on what's called a sulasi.
Sulasi?
Yeah, a triliteral root system.
Oh, like a three-letter DNA code.
Correct. You take three core letters, right? Say K, T, B. That root contains the conceptual DNA of writing.
Right, okay.
And from those three letters, you derive kitab, which is a book. Maktab, a letter. Maktab, a desk. Katib, a writer.
Oh, wow. So it's highly logical, very predictable.
Extremely predictable. It's an engine. If you find a word you've never seen before and you can identify its sulasi, you can deduce its general meaning.
Okay, I'm tracking with the sulasi engine. It's a formula. So when we apply Kamana to the opening of this chapter, Yasin, what's the three-letter root?
It doesn't have one.
Wait, what?
The engine completely stalls. There is no sulasi.
No root at all.
No root. There's no conceptual DNA to extract.
Yeah.
What we have here belongs to a category called hurufu mukata.
Hurufu mukata, meaning disjointed letters.
Disjointed or severed letters. They are entirely severed from the surrounding grammatical structure. Their raw, literal meaning is absolutely nothing more than their phonetic names as letters of the alphabet.
So it is literally just the sound of the letter Y and the letter S.
Nothing more. Just Ya and Sin. And when scholars look at the holistic meaning of this, the consensus is that these are letters whose true cipher and meaning are known only to the creator of the system.
Man, that completely flips how I've seen this presented. Usually when people read Yasin, they read it so smoothly.
Like a greeting.
Yeah, or they use it as a person's name. It feels very comfortable. But you're saying that smooth feeling is a trap?
Oh, it is absolutely a trap. It's an intentional disruption that we've culturally paved over.
Wow.
The text is sending this deliberate, jarring alert to your brain in the absolute first second of engagement.
Like a roadblock.
Exactly. A concrete roadblock designed to abruptly halt the reader and stops them from proceeding with arrogance. It forces you to immediately confront something you cannot conquer.
But, okay, how did the original audience process this? Because I'm trying to picture the people who first heard this in 7th century Arabia.
Right. They didn't have standard English translations to smooth over the bumps.
Exactly. They were native speakers. If someone drops a grammatical roadblock in front of them, what's their reaction?
To really understand that, we have to spend a moment in their world. We have to look at the exact mechanics of Arabia.
The classical Arabic language.
Right. And how central it was to their society. Because in 7th century Arabia, they didn't have, like, vast architectural monuments or advanced metallurgy.
No huge empires yet either.
Exactly. Their entire cultural capital was invested in language.
Yeah.
Poetry and rhetoric, what they called belagat. That was their technology.
It was basically their social media.
It was everything. It was their news cycle, their political campaigns, their historical archives.
So the people who could manipulate language were the ultimate power brokers.
The absolute power brokers. The best content, the viral masterpieces of their era, were physically written down and hung on the doors of the Kaaba in Mecca for everyone to judge.
Oh, wow. I'm picturing this society where everyone is essentially a master wordsmith, constantly looking for a linguistic flaw in their rivals.
It was a ruthless, hyper-competitive literary environment. So let's break down what happens when Yasin is dropped into that arena.
Okay, set the scene for me.
Linguistically, Classical Arabic is analyzed through two main branches. The first is sarf, which is morphology.
Morphology, so how words change shape to indicate tense or number.
Exactly. But as we established with the hurufu muqatta, there is no derivation here. There's no past, present, or future tense. These letters are the rawest possible materials.
Okay, I want to visualize this. It's like you're a master architect in that society. You commission a grand, perfectly engineered house.
Right.
And the delivery crew arrives, the gates open, and instead of carved marble, the builder just dumps 2 raw, unbaked clumps of clay right onto your front lawn.
And walks away.
Yeah. You'd stand there thinking, oh, what am I supposed to do with this?
A very apt metaphor. You're handed the fundamental units of construction, but completely devoid of any architecture.
Right.
And that brings us to the second branch of Arabic linguistic study, naive.
Which is syntax. Syntax. How words connect to form a sentence.
Exactly. In Arabic grammar, every word must have an irab, a specific grammatical role. It has to act as a subject, an object, a verb.
It has to connect. Let me guess. These disjointed letters don't connect to anything.
They have absolutely no irab. They do not attach to a noun phrase. They don't initiate a verb phrase.
They just float there.
They hover in the air like monolithic structures, completely defying the established rigid rules of syntax that this entire society relied upon.
So into this highly critical environment where poets are scrutinizing every single syllable, this text drops 2 letters that break all the rules.
Yeah.
Why? What is the rhetorical strategy?
It employs 2 profound rhetorical devices from Bilagat. The first is barat-i-istilal.
Barat-i-istilal, meaning?
It's the art of making a striking, flawless, and attention-grabbing opening. But the second device is the true weapon here, tahadi.
Tahadi, the challenge.
The ultimate challenge. By dropping 2 everyday letters into the mix, the underlying message to these master poets was devastatingly simple.
What was it saying?
It was saying, here's the raw material. These are the exact same phonetic sounds you use every single day in the marketplace, in your homes, in your prized poetry.
The building blocks are not hidden from you.
Exactly. Go ahead. Arrange them. Synthesize your own alphabet to produce a text of this magnitude.
Basically, here is the clay. Build a better house.
And the historical result of that challenge was a profound, defeated silence from the greatest linguistic minds of the era.
Just total silence.
The great classical commentator, Zamashri, highlights the psychological genius of this. He notes that by using their own familiar alphabet, the text proves it's not made of alien, incomprehensible sounds.
Right. It uses the letters they know intimately.
Exactly. Which proves their utter inability to synthesize it themselves. It strips away the excuse that the language is foreign.
Man, that is brilliant. But I need to push back on this for a second.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at this from the perspective of a modern reader seeking guidance. If this text is supposed to be a clear, universal guidebook for all of humanity, why start with a cipher?
It's a fair question.
What is the actual utility of a coded guidebook? Like, if I buy a complex piece of furniture, I don't want the first page of the assembly manual to be an unsolvable riddle. I want step 1, step 2.
That is the most logical objection to raise, and it gets to the very core of human psychology. To understand the utility, we have to engage in a bit of a Socratic dialogue.
Okay, let's do it.
Think about the mechanics of your own mind. When you encounter a code you genuinely cannot solve, what's your internal cognitive sequence of events?
Well, initially there's a spike of frustration. I feel a bit inadequate because, used to understanding things.
Right.
But right after that frustration, there is a massive wave of curiosity. My brain registers that there is a gap in my internal database, and it desperately wants to fill it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You recognize a deficit, and that recognition makes you receptive. Now, let's reverse the scenario. Imagine a mind that is thoroughly infected with absolute arrogance.
I know it all.
Right. A person who firmly believes they already possess all necessary knowledge. Can that specific mind learn anything new?
No, because it doesn't recognize a deficit. We usually use the analogy of trying to pour water into a glass that's already full to the brim. The water just spills over the sides.
It's wasted.
But honestly, a better way to look at the arrogant mind is like a corrupted hard drive that is completely out of storage space.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, if you try to download a new critical software update, the system physically rejects the file. It cannot write the new data until you authorize a formatting wipe to clear out the junk.
That is a highly accurate mechanical analogy.
Yeah.
If your mind is full of its own perceived brilliance, the wisdom of the text will be rejected by your internal firewall.
So the cipher forces the wipe.
Yes, the profound utility of the Yaseen cipher is to aggressively force that formatting wipe. It's a Socratic reset.
It compels you to admit, I do not know.
In the very first breath of reading, it's the ultimate ego check at the front door.
Wow. And this maps perfectly onto, the Oxford method?
Yes, the frameworks used in Oxford University Socratic seminars. In those high-level epistemological discussions, the boundary question is always, can humanity eventually grasp all of reality?
Right. Is human knowledge theoretically limitless, or is there a hard, impenetrable boundary?
Exactly.
Because I feel like since the Enlightenment, the prevailing cultural philosophy has been that human reason is the ultimate tool.
Absolutely. The assumption is that given enough time and processing power, human logic will conquer every mystery.
We view the unknown as just a temporary delay in our inevitable omniscience.
And this text answers that Enlightenment assumption with a definitive no. It establishes a firm, unyielding epistemological boundary.
Meaning omniscience belongs only to the creator.
Exclusively.
Are we saying human reason is useless then? Because that feels very defeatist.
Not useless in the slightest. Human reason is a magnificent tool, but we must be realistic about its structural parameters. Think of human intellect like the advanced radar system on a naval ship.
Okay, a radar.
It keeps you from crashing into reefs, helps you navigate fog. It's absolutely essential. But a radar has a finite physical range.
No matter how advanced it is, it can't ping the other side of the globe.
Right. It sweeps the immediate ocean, and then there's a line where the screen simply goes dark.
Okay, that visual really clarifies it. So human intellect is the radar sweeping the water, and Yaseen is the vast, boundless ocean that begins exactly 1 millimeter past where our radar screen ends.
A perfect synthesis.
Yeah.
It's the text forcing us to acknowledge the deep, dark waters beyond our sensory limits.
And what's so striking about this ancient linguistic concept is how perfectly it mirrors the most advanced modern systems frameworks we use today.
Oh, the parallels are incredible.
Let's follow that thread, because if humans have recognized this hard limit on our knowledge for centuries, how do we handle that when we build our own complex systems?
You're thinking of the systems engineering research out of ETH Zurich.
Yes. When we build massive databases today, do we build in an admission of ignorance?
We do. In the model studied at ETH Zurich, you are constantly managing the interaction between different components. Imagine the human mind as the user interface, the UI.
The dashboard where we process information.
Exactly. Now imagine the entire Quran, the full breadth of the knowledge within it, as the back-end database.
So Yaseen acts as the firewall sitting between them.
A highly sophisticated, impenetrable firewall. Now, what is the primary mechanical function of a firewall?
Well, a firewall is meant to keep hackers out. It monitors traffic, and if it detects an unauthorized or malicious request, it blocks the connection so data doesn't get corrupted.
Right.
But wait, are you saying a reader who is just asking logical questions is treated as a hacker by this text?
Not a reader asking logical questions with humility. The firewall is specifically looking for the signature of arrogance.
Ah, I see.
A mind that approaches the text thinking it already knows better, or trying to manipulate the text to serve its own ego that is categorized as an unauthorized request.
So you have to authenticate your session with the password of humility.
Exactly. Now, if we treat this like a software protocol, we can break the firewall's action down into 3 distinct software components.
Okay, walk me through them.
The first component acts like a CAPTCHA.
Oh, like those grids of photos where you have to click all the crosswalks to prove you aren't a bot?
Precisely. The text is running a diagnostic test on you. It's asking, are you a conscious, humble human willing to learn, or an arrogant, automated program running pre-installed prejudices?
If you refuse to admit you can't read the disjointed letters, you fail the CAPTCHA. You prove you're just a bot running an ego script.
You are blocked.
Okay, what happens if you pass the CAPTCHA? What is the second component?
If you pass, the second component initiates. The RAM cleaner.
The RAM cleaner.
Think about what happens when your computer's memory gets overloaded with dozens of heavy background applications.
The system slows to a crawl, the fans spin loudly, and eventually the UI freezes. You have to open the task manager and force quit the background noise to clear the cache.
Yaseen forces you to clear your mental cache. Before you can download the massive files of wisdom contained in the text, you must forcefully wipe away your preconceived notions.
You free up the cognitive processing power required for true learning.
Exactly. And once the RAM is cleared, the third component initiates.
Which is the literal start button,
Yeah.
the initiator.
Yes. You cannot run the executable file of the text until the firewall has verified your humility and cleared your mental cache.
This idea of a systemic defense mechanism really reminds me of the history of cryptography.
The Harvard case study.
Yeah, the Alan Turing and the Enigma machine case. During World War II, the Nazis used the Enigma machine to encrypt military communications.
Generating billions of combinations.
Right. It was considered completely mathematically unbreakable.
And how did Alan Turing approach that uncrackable system?
Well, he fought it. He built his own massive electromechanical machine, the bomb, specifically designed to brute force the code.
Right. Sheer computational genius.
He used relentless processing power to establish intellectual dominance over the machine.
And that is exactly where the case reveals the profound inversion of our text. Turing fought the system to conquer it.
Right?
If you approach Yaseen with a Turing mindset, trying to aggressively conquer it, trying to forcefully decode the Hurufi Mukata to prove your own brilliance, you will utterly fail.
Because brute force does not work on this firewall.
It's not a mathematical puzzle with a hidden solution. There is no solution to find.
The only way to break the code is to accept that it's uncrackable.
You have to surrender to the fact that it was generated by a higher, infinite intellect. And in that precise moment of surrender, when your internal monologue says, I cannot solve this, you don't break the text's code. You actually break your own arrogance.
That admission of limitation is the true hidden decryption key. You solve the puzzle by realizing you are the puzzle that needs solving.
That's beautifully put.
But this concept of a fundamental limitation, it isn't just linguistic or psychological, is it? Doesn't this map directly onto how the physical universe actually operates at a structural level?
It absolutely does. If we look at the very bedrock of physical reality through the lens of quantum physics, we encounter the exact same principle.
Werner Heisenberg's uncertainty principle.
Yes.
Wait, how does a linguistic anomaly in an ancient Arabic text have anything to do with subatomic particles?
Because both deal with the absolute limits of observation and knowledge. Heisenberg mathematically proved that at the quantum level, there is a fundamental, inescapable limit to what a human observer can know simultaneously.
If you measure a subatomic particle's exact position with razor-sharp precision, you physically lose the ability to know its momentum?
It is not that our microscopes aren't powerful enough yet. It is that the universe literally blurs the data to prevent us from knowing everything at once.
So the universe itself possesses a built-in epistemological limit.
It is a physical law of nature that you cannot be omniscient. Yaseen is the linguistic and spiritual declaration of that exact same quantum uncertainty.
Just as you cannot know the full state of a particle, you cannot know the full reality of existence.
It's a structural limit placed on human intelligence, encoded into 2 letters.
I'm tracking with all of this, and honestly, it is incredibly profound. From ancient poetry battles to ETH Zurich firewalls and quantum uncertainty.
It covers a lot of ground.
But I want to bring this philosophy all the way down to earth for a minute. Let's look at the listener's daily reality.
Okay, let's ground it.
Because someone is sitting here right now thinking, okay, this is a fascinating intellectual exercise. The universe has a firewall, but what does this ancient error code actually mean for me today while I'm waiting for my coffee and scrolling through my phone?
It means everything to that exact scenario.
Yeah.
Because we are currently living through a severe macro-cultural crisis. We exist in an era of terrifying information obesity.
Information obesity.
Yes.
The global algorithmic system that powers our phones and our discourse sells us a very specific, very toxic lie every single minute of the day.
The lie that we're supposed to be omniscient.
Exactly.
The pressure that we have to have a fully formed, articulate opinion on literally every topic that trends on the internet. The system demands constant frictionless output. You open any social media platform, and suddenly every single user is performing as an expert virologist during a health crisis,
An expert macroeconomist during a market dip.
a master military strategist during a geopolitical conflict. There is this crushing collective hubris, a total illusion of omniscience, fueled by a quick scan of Wikipedia.
We are absolutely terrified of being perceived as uninformed. The social currency of our time is knowing things.
We gorge ourselves on headlines.
We skim the summaries, and suddenly we are ready to fiercely debate complex histories we knew nothing about an hour ago.
And into this chaotic, noisy era of information obesity, the concept of Yasin acts as a silence bomb.
A silence bomb dropped right into the middle of our modern
It
hubris.
forces a radical pause.
You know, I see this play out in the micro world all the time. Think about a really mundane, relatable example. You're hanging out on a Discord server playing a game, or you're at a dinner party, and people start fiercely debating a new piece of technology or a controversial movie that just came out. You haven't seen the movie, you haven't read the tech article.
But the instinct is to fake it.
The overwhelming, almost physical social pressure is to nod along, throw in a generic buzzword you heard someone else use, and pretend you're totally up to speed.
That is the ego desperately trying to avoid the vulnerability of ignorance. It is the radar pretending it can see past the horizon.
Right. But embracing the mechanism of the Yasin firewall gives you courage in the mundane. It gives you the psychological permission to be the one person in that Discord chat who just stops the momentum and says, "What is that? I actually have no idea what you guys are talking about. Explain it to me."
It is a radical act of authenticity in a landscape of performers. Look at the speed culture we're embedded in. The modern algorithm is a relentless, frictionless machine.
Its only fundamental command is scroll and consume.
It hates friction. It hates pauses. And those two disjointed letters, ya and sin, they are a literal block of wood thrown straight into the gears of that algorithmic machine.
They force you to stop consuming passively, because as we established with the Quranic, you cannot just read them and glide to the next sentence.
They force you to hit the brakes, acknowledge a massive gap in your processing power, and start internally producing original reflective thought. You shift from passive consumption to active reflection.
You know, if we look at other cultures that value this kind of intentional pause, I immediately think of the philosophy studied at Tokyo University.
The concept of monozukuri.
Yes, monozukuri. In English, we usually translate it as craftsmanship or the art of making things, but at its deepest level, it is entirely about the internal mindset of the maker.
How so?
Well, in traditional Japanese craftsmanship, when an apprentice approaches a master to learn a trade, the absolute first requirement is that the apprentice must consciously become a blank slate.
They must format their own hard drive before entering the workshop.
Exactly. If the apprentice brings their own half-baked ideas, their ego, and their assumptions into the workshop, they are completely incapable of receiving the master's pure technique. They must admit their hands know nothing in order to learn true craftsmanship.
And that philosophy pairs flawlessly with the broader Japanese aesthetic of wabi-sabi.
The profound celebration of imperfection and incompleteness.
In the West, we expend massive amounts of cognitive energy trying to project a perfect, all-knowing, flawless intellect. We hide our blind spots. But wabi-sabi teaches that there is deep authenticity and beauty in the flawed, in the incomplete.
Finding peace in our inherent inability to comprehend everything completely.
That is the very essence of accepting the Yasin firewall. It is okay that our human radar does not reach the end of the ocean. The mystery beyond the screen is not a failure, it is beautiful.
Man, that is a massive physiological relief. Just hearing that takes the pressure off. We don't have to carry the weight of knowing everything.
And we are about to transition into how you can make that relief permanent. We're going to map out a highly specific 30-day psychological transformation to completely rewire how your brain handles the crushing pressure of this speed culture.
And right before we get into those exact actionable steps in the habit loop, a quick organic reminder for you. If you want to keep exploring how to break down ancient wisdom using modern mental models like systems engineering and cognitive psychology, make sure to hit subscribe or join our newsletter. We are building a whole library of these mental resets. All right, let's get back to the actual strategy. What is the assignment here? How do we practice this?
The assignment is deceptively simple, but executing it requires immense self-awareness and a willingness to be vulnerable. I'm giving you one specific action for this week.
Just one action.
Just one. Over the next 7 days, someone is inevitably going to ask your opinion on a topic. It could be about macroeconomics, a piece of office gossip, a complex geopolitical event, or a new scientific study.
Something you are not a genuine, verified expert in. Okay, the moment happens. What is my exact response?
When they ask, I want you to look at them. Maintain a relaxed posture. Smile. And say, without adding any defensive commentary, without making a single excuse for your lack of knowledge, say exactly this. I have absolutely no idea about this. What do you think?
So absolutely no padding. I can't say, oh, I've been so busy I haven't had time to read the article, or I vaguely heard something on a podcast. Just a clean, surgical, I have absolutely no idea.
A clean, unapologetic admission of a blank slate.
I can literally feel my blood pressure dropping just imagining doing that. The immediate relief from the crushing performance pressure is huge.
We walk around all day carrying this heavy, exhausting armor of having to be in the know.
Yeah.
Dropping that armor is liberating.
And the paradox here is that people will actually find you far more authentic, confident, and trustworthy when you finally look them in the eye and admit you don't know something.
Because raw authenticity is magnetic in a world entirely populated by fakes. Now, if you take that 1 week action and rigorously extend it into a 30-day transformation, you will witness a fundamental rewiring of your neuroplasticity.
How does the brain physically change?
Exercising this, muscle for 30 consecutive days physically shifts your brain's default operational state. You move out of defense mode.
The state where your brain is constantly burning massive amounts of glucose, trying to protect your ego, scan for threats to your intellect, and fake competence.
Exactly. And then when you power down defense mode, you shift into learning mode. Ignorance stops being a shameful radioactive weakness that you have to frantically hide.
It becomes a high-powered vacuum for actual retained knowledge.
Because you are open, genuinely curious, and completely undefended, your brain actually absorbs and synthesizes the information rather than just parrying it away.
Now, I want to jump in with a vital warning here because it is very easy to take this philosophy of the unknown and swing the pendulum way too far in the opposite direction.
Oh, definitely.
Do not fall into the trap of thinking the entire book or the entirety of existence is a cryptic, unknowable puzzle, and we should all just sit around in ignorance.
That's a crucial distinction.
The cipher, the unreadable error code of Yaseen, is only on the front door. It is the firewall at the gate. But once you pass that firewall by authenticating your humility, the inside of the house is wide open, brightly lit, and perfectly logically clear.
The firewall grants access. It does not deny reality. The goal is never to wallow in ignorance. The goal is to use the active admission of ignorance as the specific decryption key to enter the house of knowledge.
To help you build this decryption key, we can look at the mechanics of behavioral psychology. Let's break this down into an atomic habit loop so you can practically apply the concept of the firewall in real time.
Step 1 is the cue, the environmental trigger.
Okay, what's the trigger?
This is the exact micro moment you reach into your pocket, grab your phone to open a social media app, or the moment you feel your heart rate spike because you're about to jump into the comment section of a heated online debate.
Got it. Step 2 is the craving, the emotional driver behind the action. In this scenario, it is the FOMO.
The fear of missing out.
It's the desperate, itchy urge to numb your mind with the latest discourse, or the low-level anxiety that you need to catch up on the daily cultural agenda so you don't feel left behind by the herd.
Exactly. And that brings us to step 3, the routine. This is the point of intervention where you deploy the firewall.
Your new routine is not to throw the phone away entirely, right?
No, it's to insert the friction, the block of wood, into the algorithm. You pause for exactly 2 seconds before your thumb hits the reply button or the app icon.
2 seconds of friction.
You take one deep physical breath to reset your nervous system, and you say a specific internal phrase. I do not have to know everything.
One physical breath, I do not have to know everything.
And that leads directly to step 4, the reward. The reward is instantaneous and physiological.
It's the immediate lightness in your chest, the sudden drop in cortisol levels, the immense mental freedom of escaping the FOMO trap.
You realize in real time that the world will keep spinning perfectly well even if you do not weigh in on the discourse.
And if you cycle through that specific loop enough times, cue, craving, routine, reward, you eventually reach the final ultimate phase of behavioral change, the identity shift.
You look in the mirror and you realize, I am no longer someone drowning in a toxic information dump.
I am a person with a clear, defended mind. I am the architect of my own attention, and I choose exactly what I know and what I let go of.
That is the true protective power of the firewall. It protects your core identity from being consumed by the noise of the system.
I want to make absolutely sure this concept sticks with you long after this deep dive ends. So we are going to use a memory anchor, specifically the method of loci, or a memory palace technique, to physically lock this visualization into your brain.
It's a powerful tool.
I want you to close your eyes or just visualize this vividly in your mind's eye. Imagine the front door of your own house or apartment. The heavy, solid front door you walk through every single day. Look closely at the peephole, right in the center of the wood.
Okay, picture the people.
Now imagine that directly over that peephole, deeply engraved into solid steel plates, are two glowing Arabic letters, a ya and a sin.
It becomes a permanent, unmovable fixture on the threshold of your personal sanctuary.
Exactly. And just as you naturally stop to wipe the dirt off your boots or leave your muddy shoes outside on the mat before stepping onto the clean floors of your home, you must look at those steel letters and mentally leave your I know everything arrogance outside on the porch.
You absolutely cannot drag the mud of your ego into the clean, sacred space of real knowledge.
To pair with that powerful visual anchor, we have a final rhythmic formula to keep in your mind.
It's a simple, repeating mental chant to use when you feel the chaotic pressure of the speed culture closing in on you. Just repeat this. Stop the mind, throw away arrogance, the disjointed letters open the door.
Stop the mind, throw away arrogance, the disjointed letters open the door.
If we synthesize everything we have unpacked today, from the silent shock of the 7th century Arabian master poets to the physical boundaries of human radar, the ETH Zurich systems, architecture models, the quantum limits of Heisenberg, and the atomic habits of our daily lives, it all distills down to one undeniable universal reality.
What's the bottom line?
Yaseen is the ultimate firewall of the universe, demanding you accept the absolute limits of your own mind before you are granted access to infinite wisdom.
Think about your life right now. Look honestly at the routines, the arguments, and the pressures you face on a daily basis. What is the one specific area, relationship, or career path where faking expertise is the exact thing holding you back from truly learning? Drop your answer in the comments right now.